edition of Retail Therapy on the Sunday Scaries Podcast. My name's Will deFries. In the studio with me right now is someone that you've heard from before, someone you know very well, and someone you're going to be seeing a lot more of on this feed, Barrett Dudley.
Hello.
Barrett, so great to have you here.
It's great to be here, man. I'm really excited about what we're doing here, and it feels good, man. This is got a great first episode, and this just makes sense, you know.
Something I've always enjoyed on the Sunday Scaries Podcast is bringing Barrett on periodically to talk about gift guides, style guides for certain things, just certain topics that we might just have a shared affinity for. And about a month ago, I approached Barrett and I said, you know, I'd really like to do some regular episodes with you on the Sunday Scaries feed. And we kind of spitballed a little bit and we came up with a format that I think pretty much worked for us. And so I think you will be seeing about 2 episodes a month. Is that what we decided on, Barrett?
I think that's right. About every other week or so.
So I think every other Wednesday, you might be seeing another episode on the feed. We might miss a couple. We might do a couple more. Who knows? We'll see how it goes.
Whatever we want to do.
For me, from my perspective, I have a lot of topics that I would like to cover on Sunday Scaries. But given the current format, it's kind of difficult for me to do those things sometimes. It might be that I don't have the expertise in it. It might be that I just don't feel like doing the research on it, or it might just be something that I don't think is perfectly suited for a standalone segment. And I think this kind of offers both of us somewhat of a venue and a platform to talk about those things in a more casual manner, as opposed to kind of putting it on a pedestal and just doing like a solo piece on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't, you know, I never turn down a chance to talk more about the stuff that I'm passionate about and that I love talking about, which everything you're going to hear today, this is stuff that I think we both really love and we, you know, we just like stay very tuned in on, whether that's like, you know, the pop culture side of things or things that are trending or just like, you know, New York in general, stuff that's going on in New York or shoes. Like, man, I can't even help myself. Like, I just got distracted while you were talking because I just realized that J. Crew did a collaboration with DM on some hiking boots. Like, this is just my mind, and so it never stops. And so I'm happy to have another outlet to sit down and hash some of this stuff out.
I don't think that's the first time that a hiking boot collaboration's been discussed, but I don't think it's the last time that it'll be discussed based on how many hiking boot collaborations are going on.
That's right. There are lots and lots of them to choose from. So yeah, and you know, there will probably be like some overlap with the other podcasts that I do, Club Cool, but I think that they're like each of these have, you know, a kind of a distinct brand about them, a distinct tone. And you know, if you like what you hear over there, or if you like what you hear over here, you're gonna find a home at both places, I think. So and there's obviously, you know, there's plenty to discuss, and so it's great that we'll have many hours of the month to fill.
This will be a very rare occurrence when this style of episode drops on a Sunday. It was the first episode. I've been on vacation for the past week, and so it made sense to kind of intro everything right now. But as we said earlier, these will most likely drop in the middle of the week and kind of break up the week as opposed to replacing regular Sunday episodes. And so fear not if you enjoy those other Sunday Scaries episodes. But I think without further ado, I think it's time to jump in a little bit, Barrett.
Let's do it.
Something I think we might end up talking about somewhat regularly is aesthetics a little bit. I am very drawn to aesthetics for some reason. I think it's interesting to see how people frame themselves, how brands frame themselves, whether it be, you know, photo editing, whether it just be, you know, the style of photography, whatever it could be. And something that I've always kind of enjoyed looking at and something that I recently saw in Vogue is called the rise of Nannacore, which is essentially just old people vibes.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is, I'd not heard this term, Nannacore.
I had not either, but when I saw it, I said, oh, that makes all the sense in the world to me.
Yeah, and it does. It really is kind of a culmination of some other stuff that we've seen. There's a word I've heard floating around out there called like bookcore, which is kind of an evolution of normcore, where you kind of look like you work at a library or like a professor at Columbia or something like that.
That makes sense. I probably dabbled in that unintentionally.
And then a few years ago, or a couple years ago, there was like kind of geezer core, where like a lot of dudes were kind of like kind of picking up on the, you know, old guy suits with like a bucket hat, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And so, you mix in the kind of like knits and crochets and patchworks that have been happening. And like, I think all that comes together perfectly here in this Nannacore, which, old people, especially old people sounds wrong, doesn't it? Just
it does.
I guess they are old though.
But like, I also, if you're an old person listening to this podcast, I respect what you're doing. Like, I'm not anti-old people. I'm not an ageist. I enjoy the MO of older people. I mean, it's interesting to me getting style inspiration from old people because they're straight up not trying at this point.
That's right. They're really putting it down for this look.
Something that I wrote down is like an Instagram account that is featured in the Vogue article, and I will link all this stuff on the Substack, willdefries.substack.com. I've been doing the Sunday Digest on Sundays. I'll definitely put the article in there for everybody. But something that I've always looked at is an Instagram account called Grandparents. And this was started by a guy named Kyle Kiwi-Jarvie, and he's a creative consultant. He used to work for AdSum in New York. And all he really does is put up a bunch of photos of old people doing old people stuff. And for some reason, it's like the most relaxing Instagram feed for me. It's really just old people taking long walks, maybe getting ready to play a little tennis, doing some fly fishing, reading the newspaper on a park bench. It's just pure comfort out here.
And there's this kind of idea of time as well, right? Like in that a lot of people of this age have time.
Yes.
And so it ties into like the just the leisurely activities that you're able to do at this age with kind of like with fewer cares about the kind of the world surrounding you. Like, in your 30s, like the responsibility just like continues to pile on. And then like when you finally reach this, it kind of like starts to de-escalate a little bit. I just got finished watching the new season of Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yes.
And Larry David is like, I think he kind of fits into this conversation because his style is so specific and so iconic, and he does not change it at all, regardless of any type of,
Is he still wearing simple sneakers?
Yes.
They don't even make those anymore, right?
And in one of the last episodes, he literally throws a pair in the trash because he steps in dog poop.
I mean, I'm amazed that like I Googled it recently because I was like, man, are Simples about to make a comeback? I remember wanting a pair of Simples when I was a little kid. Probably not. I mean, I don't think they were an old people thing at that point. I think they were just a hip shoe that J. Crew probably put on their models once in a while. But like now, because of Larry David, I'm fiending for a pair of Simples. I almost want to go on eBay and just find like a vintage pair of 10.5s in like black and tan.
Yeah, I haven't looked it up, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're going for a premium. Anyway, all of this makes me think about Larry David as well because he's an older guy now and has all of this time to do less leisure activities and more like be neurotic and focus on the things that annoy him. But he could do this stuff if he wanted to.
Another aspect of this that I find to be really entertaining, and it's been found on the grandparents' feed as well, is there's one photo specifically of an old man. He's wearing a Patagonia jacket, pair of khakis, and some Yeezy Boost 350s. And it's not like he's wearing those shoes because he thinks that he's not a hype beast. He's just wearing them because they were probably the most comfortable things that he could find, and he saw them somewhere. He probably Googled like most popular expensive sneakers, and they just absolutely help. And I think, you're pulling it up on the screen right now. The amount of New Balances that are going through, I think we would be remiss to not attribute the somewhat of the rise of New Balance to these old people vibes.
Yeah, absolutely. The the whole kind of like vintagey prep 90s Seinfeld, just like dad look is like has obviously helped this New Balance wave, especially when it comes to the gray 991s and 992s and what have you. And you might hear another bit about New Balance when we get to the wish list later in the episode. But yeah, absolutely. Do you have anything that you like pulled out of your dad's closet?
I have a couple things.
Or maybe like what about your Mount Gay rum hat? Was that from?
I have a couple Mount Gay rum hats. I've acquired those through a couple different people. Okay. One of my buddies actually used to just do a lot of sailboat racing, and he had so many, and he didn't wear them anyway. He was like, "Here, take them." But actually, you brought that up. There was a guy. My favorite person that I've seen in public who was just absolutely crushing a look was about maybe 4 years ago at the WGC Dell Match Play in Austin, Texas. And I was just walking around enjoying myself. And I saw this guy, and he was wearing oversized khakis, an oversized white polo shirt that was very recklessly tucked in. And then he had on a Mount Gay rum regatta hat that appeared to have been from 1980. And it was so old that the brim of the hat was no longer going, side to side.
It
was drooping forward. And I was just like, this guy is on such another level that I can't even, he doesn't know how good he looks right now. He does not know that he looks so casual and cool that he's just out here doing it.
Yeah. It's the nonchalance. And like you said, like the piece of it where you know that they aren't really trying is like part of what's so attractive about it. And then you just like factor in like how popular vintage is and how popular upsourcing is, and how both shoppers and buyers, as well as like brands themselves, are trying to be more eco-friendly and eco-conscious and green and all that. And so it's like just the idea of kind of like stealing a piece of this, whether you're emulating the looks or rocking the New Balance, or kind of like what's most attractive to me is just like digging through your parents' old stuff and like finding things that have the patina and have that kind of like that just kind of classic feel nature to them is a really cool piece of it as well. And it doesn't like your parents. That's the thing. Looking through all this, your parents don't necessarily have to be fashionable, right? It's just like it's the vibe. It's what they put out. I guarantee you, anybody listening to this podcast, you go home, go to your mom's, your mom and dad's place or wherever, and just take a peek through the closet. I bet you'll find something you like.
I had a sweater from my dad, and it was a Ralph Lauren sweater. It was black with a collar on it, like a polo collar. And I found it in his closet one time, and I knew that it wouldn't fit him anymore. And so I stole it, and I wore it all the time. And I absolutely loved this thing, and I haven't seen anything like it ever since. And I had to stop wearing it because it had enough holes in it that it did not look high end anymore, and I couldn't actually wear it to nice events. But it was such a cool sweater, and now I'm like clamoring for it. And so you just brought up, Barrett, actually, can you tell me about Engineered Garments, a brand that I'm not very familiar with?
Yeah, so Engineered Garments is kind of the flagship label of kind of a collective called Nepenthes.
Okay.
So if you want to shop directly on their website, you actually go to nepenthesny.com or nepenthes.ny. And their host of brands includes Engineered Garments, South 2, West 8, which is like a very fly fishing. You have that on your list as like one of these leisure kind of older person activities that's very kind of it's a big source of inspiration right now in fashion writ large. Needles, who's doing like a bunch of the mohair cardigans and track pants, and then there are a couple other brands mixed in there as well. Anyway, they are. I hope I'm getting this right here. They're all like Japanese designed. Like the guy that designs Engineered Garments, Daiki Suzuki, I want to say his name is. I'm going to double check that right here, just to make sure I get it right. Yeah, Daiki Suzuki. But it's mostly made in U.S. In fact, a lot of it is made in New York City.
So it's designed in Japan, made in New York.
It's very like all those brands, but especially Engineered Garments are like this kind of very Japanese take on traditional baggier Americana type silhouettes.
Okay.
So you see like a lot of loose chore blazers and shitloads of pockets everywhere.
Love it.
Very baggy like pants, a lot of military inspiration. So it's been popular for well over a decade now. But in this moment where but silhouettes are becoming more relaxed, and then of course like this like kind of this kind of older guy style is becoming more in vogue. Like they're just having a kind of, I won't call it a resurgence, but they're definitely back as far as popularity.
The reason I asked Barrett about Engineered Garments is because Derek Guy, who works for Put This On, which is a blog They call themselves a blog about dressing like a grown-up. They do some recaps of like eBay finds, things like that. But he tweeted, I think it was last night, he tweeted, "Why does this documentary on Italian truffle hunters look like an engineered garments lookbook?" And it's just a bunch of guys standing in the woods with really cool-looking dogs.
It really does look like this is what engineered garments looks like. It's like, these functional vests with 18 pockets and the bucket hats and all the olive garb. Man, truffle hunting. That's really like, if you want to pick up a hobby that just
you're just walking through the woods with a dog. Yeah, like I mean, have you seen the movie Pig with Nicolas Cage?
No, I've not, but I have watched season 2 of The Great, and there's some truffle hunting going on in that as well.
I mean, I just from a vibe standpoint alone, when it came to Pig with Nicolas Cage, I was like, I have to see this movie.
Is this a Springer Spaniel?
It doesn't appear to be a Springer Spaniel, but I think it is some type of bird dog. Okay, yeah, right. But I kind of want to recreate that photo. I might just go as him for Halloween next year and start growing my beard out now.
Do you think you could train Rosie to truffle hunt?
I can't really train her to not eat my son's toys at this point, so I'm not sure if she could figure that out.
Truffle hunting might be not in the picture.
If I buried a Mickey Mouse miniature doll in the middle of the woods, she would find that.
Yeah,
and that's not too bad.
Yeah, this is incredible. These photos. This is, if you want to pick up another reference point for all this stuff, just think about like the most recent Amélie Andor lookbook, which I think he went to Greece to shoot, and like mixed in with, or at least one of those shoots, I think didn't have a single model. It was all just real people,
Greek people
that lived there, and so there's a lot of kids, but there's several older people sporting the clothes as well. So very much, a brand that I know we're all pretty focused on these days, and is kind of,
they're setting the tone a bit. I'm proud of us for making it 16 minutes in without mentioning them first. Very big of us.
Yeah. That's progress.
Before we get into our next topic, let's hear from our sponsor this week, First Leaf. I love to explore new wines, but I'm not always sure what to get, and I really don't want to be disappointed, and that's why I love the First Leaf Wine Club. They remove all the guesswork and doing all the hard work to discover great wines so I can just enjoy them. First Leaf winemakers sample 10,000 wines a year across 5 continents and 12 countries, and they select only the best bottles for the club. First Leaf believes wine is personal. They create a custom wine print for each member and maps their vast portfolio of wines to each person's unique taste preferences once you take their 5-minute quiz. And I have to say, Barrett, taking the quiz is actually pretty fun. You learn a little bit about yourself, and once they actually spit out the wines that match you, you can mix and match them as well. You can switch one out for a different varietal. You can do whatever you want. There are no contracts or cancellation fees, and if you're not happy with the wine you receive, First Leaf will give you a credit towards your next shipment. It's a risk-free way to explore an endless array of world-class wines. I've gotten several packages from them, and I have to say, they do a phenomenal job curating everything, and they do an even better job of making sure that you're taken care of when it comes to getting wines that you like. I will admit, I got one bottle of wine that in my first shipment that is not something that's normally in my rotation, and I immediately subbed it out, and I started getting wines that were much more tailored to me. We're very much in a big red wine phase right now with this colder weather.
Yeah,
and
that makes sense.
Once it starts to get closer to spring and summer, I think you might see a little more rosés or crisp Chardonnays showing up on that list.
I got really into white wines this last year.
Interesting.
I can just drink it like water. That's the thing.
I don't mind. I love a good white wine on ice during the summer months, especially when it's just too hot to handle outside. Celebrate your special firsts and the moments that count with First Leaf, the wine club designed to help you discover new wines you'll love, personalized to your taste and delivered to your door. Join today, and you'll get 6 bottles of wine for $29.95 with free shipping. Go to tryfirstleaf.com/scaries. That's tryfirstleaf.com/scaries for 6 bottles of wine for $29.95 and free shipping. Here's a toast to First. May you enjoy them with the people you love from the first sip to the last. Tryfirstleaf.com/scaries. Have you heard, Barrett? Cigarettes are back.
Oh. Okay.
So I'm not a smoker.
Nor am I.
I will admit to the occasional drunk cigarette, which has been severely taken out of my repertoire over the past few years. But, back in the day, it was always fun to rip a heater if you saw someone doing it when you were kind of out on the town for the night.
Now that you're a dad, do you feel like a stronger urge to like get that little piece of stress relief, or do you feel less of an urge because you have to set a good example, an even better example now?
I think the potential side effects of smoking cigarettes is it's such a large looming thing for me.
Yeah.
That I don't think my mortality since having a son has been much more at the forefront for me. And whether it's, a small decision like having one drunk cigarette when you're out with like a bachelor party or something like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not going to affect things. But I do think more in terms of mortality now.
Yeah.
And it's a very kind of depressing thing to think about. But it doesn't make me want to do it anymore. And also the feeling of doing that when you were drunk back in the day, it doesn't feel as good anymore. I think the guilt is so aggressive. It's kind of like when you smoke a cigar and you wake up the next morning and your mouth tastes like an ashtray.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same thing with cigarettes now. It's just disgusting to me.
Yeah. I'm going to let you read a little bit from the New York Times article here before I jump in with further takes.
Okay, so this is how the article begins. It's in the New York Times, and it's called That Cloud of Smoke is Not a Mirage. And it says, on a recent not-so-wintry Thursday in the Bushwick neighborhood of Brooklyn, when the only snowflakes seen were over text, a gang of 20-somethings stood in a circle outside a clearing gallery, sharing a pack of American spirits. A few days later at Columbia University, a 19-year-old pre-med student stared enviously at her phone screen, at a Parisian woman in cute dresses walking, cigarettes in hand, before stepping outside for a cigarette with her friends. She requested not to be identified by name because she didn't want her habit to affect her career in medicine. People are smoking online, too. On Instagram, Tasmin Ersahin, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Ersahin? That sounds right.
Ersahin, a photographer and stylist, posted a story of her boyfriend, Arsun. He's the son of photographer Mario Sorrenti, catching a lit cigarette in his mouth. On TikTok, Charlie Jordan, a DJ and model, tried a sexy French inhale for her 7.7 million followers. Smoking is back, said Isabel Rower, a 24-year-old sculptor, one of the spirited Americans outside clearing. She says, weirdly, in the last year or two, all my friends who didn't smoke now smoke. I don't know why. No one is really addicted to it. It's more of a pleasure activity. And then later in the article, someone whose last name is Frey said, weed is positioned as medicine now. Cigarettes are this bad, cheeky thing. And so it's almost this tongue-in-cheek, like, not addiction, but like they know they're doing something bad and something they shouldn't be doing, but it's like that's how they're lashing out in this pandemic world.
Yeah, there's a piece of the article that talks about how it's kind of a rejection of like the wellness culture that is, that has permeated like just so far and wide at this point. And one of the quotes like talks about how one of the girls is like, I'm not going to do a bunch of yoga classes and eat bowls and like spend all my money at Whole Foods. She's just like, not only do I not have the bank account for it, I'm just like, I'm rejecting that essentially. Yeah. And so, it does feel like this kind of like counterculture thing where you're zagging when everybody is zigging, especially because it feels like a lot of what I've read recently about Gen Z is how like they're not drinking as much as millennials. They kind of like reject that piece of it, and they are like they're all about like self-care and mental health and all this type of stuff. So I feel like this feels a little bit like a piece of that generation kind of saying, nah, fuck all that.
Yeah.
At the same time, that opening paragraph, on a not so wintry Thursday in the Bushwick neighborhood of Brooklyn, a gang of 20-somethings stood in a circle outside a clearing gallery sharing a pack of American spirits. That literally applies every year since, 1925.
Nothing has changed there. Yeah.
Like yeah, it's Brooklyn. There are, and Isabel Rower is a 24-year-old sculptor. Artists and entertainers, they smoke cigarettes. That's what they do.
I'm pretty sure the first ever drunk cigarette I had was in Brooklyn.
So to that end, like this feels like a little bit of like just like a reframing of the people that do smoke.
Yeah. Because
one of the things I always found interesting, like when we were in high school and people would smoke, or college and people would smoke, another piece of this article, it's like, it's not because they don't know any better. That has also been true for the last 20 or 30 or 40 years. Like everybody that I knew that smoked definitely knew that it could kill them, or that it was terrible for their lungs or bad for their health.
Yeah.
Like
Even, I mean, it says in here, I mean, there's a medical professional in here is doing it. And
Yeah.
I don't know that many doctors, but I know a handful of doctors who I know have smoked cigarettes before or have a habit.
So the idea that like people wouldn't smoke now because now in 2022 they know the health risks, that's also kind of feels like straw man type argument because, well, we've known that for 40 years now and people have still smoked. So I that's why there are far fewer smokers. The piece of this here's what I like about smoking. I obviously don't do it. I don't even have the drunk cigarette because I can't do it. I can't inhale a cigarette without appearing like I just like took a bong rip. You know what I mean? Like I'm just hacking and coughing.
It'll hit you.
But it's better than having a little fucking electronic thing in your hand puffing on it. Like it is the thing about smoking is that it's always been kind of alluring and kind of sexy and kind of, Parisian or New York or whatever. And so like that's the piece of the backlash that I can imagine maybe carrying, holding some water is that it's also a backlash against the rise of the e-cigs and the vapes.
I kind of I do appreciate that the replacing of that as like I hate sitting at a restaurant. I mean, I've sat at restaurants and every restaurant in Austin, Texas, you're sitting there out on a patio, and there's some person that looks like they're a preteen, but they're actually like 18 or 17, 18, whatever, and they just hit their USB cartridge, and I look over and I'm like, what is going on? Like this is just such a weird world. But I also think like. You were talking earlier about, the wellness and the health trends and everything like that. And I think we all know, and there's probably people listening right now who are these people, those people who go hard all weekend. They're drinking beers, they're drinking martinis, whiskey, whatever it may be. They have their drunk cigarettes. And then on Sunday, they do go to Whole Foods and they try to undo it all by, it's always been a trope on the Sunday Scaries Instagram. It's like, yep, I'm going to go to the grocery store and spend $120 on healthy food for the week because I just absolutely ruined myself all weekend. But now, like, you're right. I think they are rebelling a bit against that whole wellness concept, which, I mean, I get. Like, there's only so many years consecutively that people can tell you, like you need to hone in your morning routine. You need to stop eating this kind of food, whatever it may be. There's only so many years that can go by where people are telling you to embrace that wellness aspect before people are like, you know what? Like when I am out getting wild for a night, I might have a drunk cigarette every once in a while.
Yeah. Well, can I borrow your charger here?
You absolutely can.
The brief interruption. The other thing that I wanted that this article made me think of is so I've been watching the new Sex and the City show on HBO Max. It's called And Just Like That. A better title for it would have been White Ladies Learning Stuff.
Okay.
They definitely take on and try to tackle some of like the social issues that older privileged white people are kind of reconciling with in the last 5 years. All that being said, I very much enjoyed the show still. I think if you like scaries, if you're into the Sunday Scaries, I think you're gonna like. You probably there's an overlap. I think that Venn diagram has a large overlap of people that like Sex and the City and like Sunday Scaries. Like,
I think that's fair.
It's a vibe.
Yeah, it's kind of it's like the original rom-com television show.
Yeah, and the fabulous people wearing fabulous clothes, hanging out in New York City, like having martinis and cool lunches.
She's even hosting a podcast now.
She is hosting a podcast now. Anyway, the episode I watched last night, Carrie, she's kind of going through this, this tragedy, kind of finding herself again. And, she's selling her like $15 million apartment. She's looking amazing. She goes down, she gets into her real estate agent's car, which is this absolutely gorgeous, like chocolate brown Mercedes S-Class. And they're both looking fabulous. Carrie is like boho as ever, but super chic. And they have this Carrie is basically like, oh, do you smoke? 'Cause she can smell it. Mm-hmm. And she starts smoking again, is the point here. And it looks, of course, Carrie looks amazing smoking the cigarette in her awesome clothing. But I'm watching that, and it's like, yeah, Joe Camel looks cool in his leather jacket and his cigarette, but I cannot help. I'm like, no, don't do that to those beautiful clothes and that beautiful car.
Oh, they're just gonna reek.
Yes,
reek.
And that's that's kind of my to just kind of come full circle on the topic here. I never cared about the health aspect of it either, really. Like it it was just, it was like a, something that provided some discouragement from doing it. But all I ever needed was the fact that you'd get home from like hanging out with people that smoked or being in a bar where you could burn heaters and like reeking of cigarette smoke.
Oh, if you ever go to a casino, you
Yes.
come out and it's like, we used to have a casino very close to my hometown, and we would go there at night when we were really trying to get a little wild, and you'd get home from it and your winter coat would smell like a pack of cigarettes. And it was like, well, this wasn't worth me.
Try getting that out. Try getting that smell out.
It's like, not only did I lose like $100 that I didn't have at the blackjack table doing $5 minimum hands, but now I'm also reeking like cigarettes in the grocery store the next day while I'm trying to buy that kale that makes me feel better. It's just embarrassing. It makes you feel this so much shame.
Oh God, I'm getting such a visceral like reaction right now thinking about being hungover and putting on a jacket that smells like stale cigarettes. It's not a good combo, man.
No. I got a hug once from somebody who I hold very high in my life, and I saw her for the first time in a long time, and it was the night after doing something like that, and she gave me a big hug in the grocery store. And all I could think of the entire time was, oh my gosh, she thinks I'm the most disgusting human being right now. And that shame alone is enough to just be like, no, I'm never doing that. Like, I'm never doing that intentionally.
Yeah.
And by intentionally, I mean sober. Another trend that has been really taken over, especially over the past however many years, has been dry January. And it's something that I've talked about the last 2 years running on the regular Sunday Scaries podcast. And apparently this year, Omicron has really, as the New York Times has said, it's upending dry January. Barrett, have you ever done a dry January, or are you participating this year?
No. Speaking of a rejection of wellness culture, Will, this is, I feel, slightly ahead of that trend here. I'm all about wellness and staying in shape and being outside and doing physical stuff and moderation and eating well and all that. But I have always rejected the idea of dry January.
I am reluctant to admit that I've done it numerous times.
I don't hate on anybody that wants to like give themselves that challenge and do a reset. It's just I'm not in the habit of ever like denying myself things that I enjoy.
Yeah, I get it.
You know what I mean?
I get it.
Especially not ones that I don't that aren't a problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's like, I get that.
So it's like I don't, why would I do that to my weekends? Like I love getting home on a Friday and having a beer, or like, cooking on a Saturday and popping a nice bottle of wine, right? Like these are things that I enjoy and that make my life worth living. Why would I take those away for a month?
Yeah, when you put it like that, it's like, why would I ever do that in the past? I mean, in the past, I've done anything from a Whole30 in January to kind of hit the reset button to just doing a dry January. I've had 2 Januaries since moving to Austin that I have made it to the final weekend and broken.
Yeah.
Not proud of those times, but I've also been a terrible influence on people who are doing dry January, me texting them like week 2 being like, want to go out this weekend? Like, what do we do? Have you crashed yet? I always get a little excited when I hear one of my friends being like, yeah, I had a drink the other night and we're doing it. A big thing has been damp January, that people are calling only drinking within the confines of their home. So not going out, not going and doing that kind of thing, but it's having one drink. And it also, and I talked about this on listener questions last week, that it also is kind of in the beer and wine industry. People do it and they will only have like a very high-end glass of wine. Okay. And it's kind of more of a treat as more than it is like a habit.
Yeah. You also mentioned Whole30, which I understand the context of removing alcohol from your diet in the Whole30 more than I do just like eliminating alcohol for a month.
Yeah. I get it.
Like if you're doing like that full body
detox
and reset, like with your entire diet, it makes a lot more sense to me.
Yeah. They start this article off by saying between the emergence of new fast-spreading coronavirus variant, the sudden contraction of social life, business and school closures, and the fast approach of the coronavirus pandemic's 2nd anniversary, some people are wondering, is this month really the time to stop drinking entirely? And I have to say, that is a very valid question.
You had to wonder. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like Carrie.
I am not participating this year. I might try to take myself out of the drinking game for the second half of January a little bit. But as somebody who was, like I said, was just on vacation, I definitely had none of that in my mind during that time frame. But like now there's all these new things popping up. Like I just mentioned damp January. There's California sober, which is just people who only smoke weed or take edibles.
Yeah, that seems very popular.
I mean, there's the downside to it is I don't see many downsides to people doing that unless you're just adamantly against cannabis in general. I've come up with New York sober where you're only allowed to have martinis and cigarettes. I've been trying to think of Texas sober where I would put it at like you can only drink margaritas in Tex-Mex restaurants. Like you can't actually go out and do anything else. But if you're in a Tex-Mex restaurant,
you can have a margarita.
You can have the local swill there. But I don't know. I get why people are kind of detracting from the pressure of sober or dry January. It makes sense to me.
Well, why didn't I know that like January is the it's the start of the new year. People are doing their resolutions and feeling reborn in a way, but I always wondered why people didn't like make this dry February. It's the shortest month. And January is always like very much like the come down from the holidays for me, which I think is as you get older and older that the holidays become a little bit less of an enjoyable season and almost more of like like a month where you have to fulfill a lot of obligations. I
have become more stressed during the holidays than I have any other month. Like the holidays for me has become easily my most stressed out time.
Yep. We in the week leading up to Christmas, we hosted 2 family dinners at our house, which are just like, I mean, shouts to all the families out there that have been hosting for 25 years or do it regularly because it is a chore and a half. And so it's like January is I always feel like it's more of a time to decompress and kind of like, shed the holiday stress. And so I do, part of that is definitely being able to kind of enjoy, a drink here and there in a more relaxed environment with less of all that going on. So it almost feels like January should be kind of the come down from the holidays, and then February is when you should hit the ground.
I couldn't agree more.
With your new kind of resolutions or goals or resets.
I did this when I was living in Michigan. I did this because I didn't like the idea of January. There's also like holiday weekends in January where, when you live in a place where tourists are visiting, it's a fun time to go out. February and March were always a little easier because there was just less going on. As long as you're not a big St. Patrick's Day person, March was easy for me. March Madness gets kind of mixed in there, and it kind of makes you want to have a couple beers or something. But even when it came to February, like Valentine's Day, and there's some long weekends in February too.
True.
But it just seems like an easier time, and I kind of got to the time at that point where I was like, okay, there's really nothing to do anyway. So if I'm gonna take off time from drinking, now's the time. Like I might as well feel better about myself going into spring when I actually am going to put on fewer layers and I actually want to look better. Like there's a health aspect there.
Yeah, very cold in January too. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's like I'd rather hit the reset button closer to summer when I can see the effects faster.
Well, I'm noticing that New York Times references a coined term where people call dry January drynuary. Have you ever heard of that?
Hate that.
I hate
no.
that.
That sounds like
that's not a good matchup of words.
I think like an older editor from the New York Times was like, no, we should put this in there. That's definitely a thing. That is not.
I've never heard drynuary.
That is not a compound word that I'm a fan of.
Yeah.
Let's hear from our other sponsor, someone that will actually aid in your health, unless you're. I mean. Yeah.
We do support wellness on this podcast.
We do. And Green Chef is a company that will support your wellness whether you like it or not. Green Chef is a CCOF certified meal kit company. They make eating well easy with plans to fit every lifestyle. So whether you're keto, paleo, vegan, vegetarian, gluten-free, or just looking to eat more balanced meals, Green Chef offers a range of recipes to suit your preferences. You can enjoy your greens while being green. Green Chef is the most sustainable meal kit, offsetting 100% of their plastic packaging in every box and 100% of their carbon footprint and emissions. Green Chef's pre-portioned ingredients mean you'll actually reduce your food waste by at least 25% compared to grocery shopping, and they offer 35 nutritious and flavorful options to choose from every week, featuring premium clean ingredients that are seasonally sourced for peak freshness. Green Chef's always changing varieties, easy to follow recipes means there's something new to discover each week, so you never get bored. If you take a look at this week's recipes, they've got everything from spicy chili ginger chicken kale salads, creamy shrimp and bacon soup, which looks absolutely incredible as someone who loves bacon wrapped shrimp. They even have teriyaki pork fried rice, and I think I even saw a mustard steak on there.
Man.
None of these take more than 30 minutes to prepare, so you're not going to spend a lot of time in the kitchen slaving over everything, and you can feel healthy all while doing it. Go to greenchef.com/scaries130 and use code scaries130 to get $130 off plus free shipping. Again, go to greenchef.com/scaries130 and use code scaries130 to get $130 off plus free shipping. The #1 meal kit for eating well. Green Chef. All right, Barrett, this is a segment that I think we'll do a little maintenance on as this grows as an offshoot. It's a wish list. I think I could probably come up with a better name than just wish list, but that's what it is for right now.
Yeah, no, nothing's coming to me top of mind. So we'll have to stick with wish list for today.
We'll sort it out. For me, I always have you're a tab person, right?
Talk to producer Randy. He's shocked and horrified every time I'm in here by the overwhelming number of windows and tabs that I have open at any given moment.
I am not a tab person. I like to have as few tabs open as possible, and I will click out of things immediately. But I'm a big bookmark person, and one of my biggest folders is just called Buy, B-U-Y, and it's a place where I have things bookmarked from years ago. If I go to most of the links at the top of that folder, they're dead at this point. Those products don't exist anymore. They've been sold out or out of stock, whatever, for so long. But I always kind of like going in there and seeing the things that I've previously bookmarked and done whatever with. And it is my wish list in a way. And it's something that I usually don't act on, but it's something that I like maintaining.
I think, I think you're either probably a tabs person or a bookmarks person. Mm-hmm. Or maybe some people were just like totally reliant on the fact that, your Chrome kind of like keeps a history of what you were looking at, so you can like start to type in a website and it'll be like, oh, you want to go back to this product. Mm-hmm. But much in the way that you keep your bookmarks, that's one of the reasons why I keep the tabs open, is because it's like many of the tabs would fall into that buy category. Yes. And it's actually, we'll talk about some of the things we want, but it's a great feeling when you do refresh one of those tabs and it's gone or sold out, and you can exit out.
It's a lot of weight off your shoulders.
It's this big sigh of relief. You're like, okay, good. I don't have to worry about how I'm going to afford that now.
I'm actually going through a period, and my wife and I thought about doing this, and we haven't acted on it yet, but I think I might try to get her to do it maybe next month, where we try to not buy anything material for the entire month.
Yeah, another version of dry.
Exactly.
This would be that would be more of a like. That's probably what I should do.
My dad bet my mom one time that she couldn't do that, and this was back in the 90s. This was a long time ago, and he bet her $100 that she couldn't go an entire month without buying something, and she did it. And my dad, I don't know why he thought to do this. She won the bet, and I think he must have been bitter about it, but he paid her the $100 all in pennies. I think he just walked down to the bank and said,
petty.
Give me some pennies, and he paid her in pennies. But I don't know where I was going with that, but I'm currently not buying anything, but it's gotten very difficult with all the sale emails that we're receiving from literally
sale
everybody.
Season is really tough.
And one of the companies that I've talked about numerous times before, whether it was on a Worth the Splurge segment talking about black t-shirts, they've got a candle that I really like with like a little Keith, I think we talked about it, the Keith Haring candle from Noah, where it looks like the little Keith Haring figure's throwing his ass in a circle. But Noah's a company that I've always really enjoyed. I think John Duda of Internet Party introduced me to them years ago. And when I went in their store in New York, I was taken aback by everything in there. And they did a collaboration with Barracuda on a corduroy patchwork tote. And I have been an absolute... I'll say it. I've been a slut for totes for the last couple years now, and I just love totes. And I actually blame you for the corduroy affinity that I've recently had an uptick in, or maybe it's the truffle hunting guys too.
Could be either, yeah.
But they have a corduroy patchwork tote that's $325.
It's a pricey tote.
You can get it for 40% off currently, but as someone who's not in the market to still buy a tote that's triple figures, I'm not going to do that. But I'm gonna do it, Barrett. I'm putting it on the wish list.
Here's some things about this tote, Will. That and here this is something that I'm good at, is convincing people to spend money. It's made in Italy. That's one thing that you should know about.
Big.
It's also here. It's made from 100% cotton English patchwork corduroy. And I know that you are what do you call people that really like England? Is it
It's an Anglophile. Yes.
Yeah.
I blame my parents for that.
You're I believe if you really love all things French and Parisian, you're a Francophile.
Okay.
So,
Probably.
So I would call you an Anglophile.
I'm definitely an Anglophile. I think my parents always had an affinity for the UK. They always were intrigued by the royal family, the inner goings of that. They took me there at a very formative age of my life. When I was in 5th grade, we got very cheap plane tickets over to London. I think they were literally $100 plane tickets to London.
Shocking.
And so, we flew straight from Detroit to London for $100 each. And from that point on, I was just very interested by just, the English culture, London. We have Scottish heritage, so I've always been intrigued by Scotland. And yeah.
That might be the most amazing, like that's the craziest pricing thing from 30 years ago that I've heard in a long time.
It was just hilarious.
That's $100 to fly to London.
It was like some deal they were running, and my dad hopped on it, and it was just like, okay, I guess we're going to London.
So yeah, your corduroy here is English. It's patchwork, and it's and then it looks like probably those real leather. It doesn't say anything about leather, but the handles in the bottom look like they're leather to me. Maybe they might just be corduroy though. No, I think it's more.
They're
English,
corduroy.
More English corduroy.
Corduroy. It's all English corduroy.
Yeah. I've taken to carrying a tote as well as my kind of daily bag. It's just nice to be able to just reach in and grab what you need. Mm-hmm. And we, here in Texas and in Austin, we're in our cars a lot. Mm-hmm. So hauling the bag is mostly in between your car and wherever you're going next.
Yeah.
So it's not like you just have to worry about having your bag splayed open and on the subway or constantly walking around, stuff like that for people to reach into or for things to fall out of. So totes are good for us. Yeah, I really do. I like this one. It is tough. It's a tough swallow. Going well over $100 is tough for a tote, but I think this one's pretty special.
It's cool, and I just, like I said, I've just been on a huge tote kick. I just love it. Another thing that's stopping me from this is just imagining this getting absolutely ruined. The nice corduroy just getting absolutely beaten up, but it honestly would probably make it look cooler at that point.
Yeah, so. Okay, mine today is going to be a pair of sneakers. Most of my wish list recently has been shoes. It's some kind of something that just comes and goes. I'm either in a shoe buying phase or I'm out of a shoe buying phase. And we mentioned them at the front of the podcast with the Nannacore style and the old guys all looking fresh as hell in their New Balance. So mine is a pair of New Balance 991s in the classic gray colorway. Over the last couple years, I've tried several New Balance silhouettes. I've got 990 V5s, and I've got the 550s that ALD kind of relaunched, and I've tried 992s, which have been the most popular silhouette of the last year. 991s are my favorite that I've tried so far. They fit me the best. I find them the most comfortable. I think that they are the easiest to wear with a broad range of styles. 992s are actually really kind of bulky and tall and weird, honestly. So 991s are my favorite, and I don't have anything in the very traditional New Balance gray. Last time I had something in this colorway had to be during college. So
I was gonna say, I'm imagining freshman Barrett walking around.
2007, somewhere in that range is probably the last time I had an all gray pair. But this is, this is just kind of. The New Balance thing is not going away in 2022. In fact, it will probably only get even bigger.
Teddy Santis is now a creative director.
Teddy Santis, the head of the creator and head of ALD, is the creative director for New Balance made in the U.S.
Okay.
And all signs that I'm seeing point to anything he releases in that Made in USA collection essentially being like a Jordan 1 this year.
Yeah.
You are not going to be able to just pop onto the New Balance website and pick his shit up. Mm-hmm. It'll be botted, it'll be resold, it will be an absolute feeding frenzy for the hype boys.
We're gonna end. This is going to be the new photo of the old man in the Patagonia jacket and khakis wearing Yeezy Boost. Now it's just going to be wearing a pair of New Balance USA, Teddy Santis style,
So
New Balances.
So That's one of the reasons why these are climbing towards the top of my list, is because I kind of feel the need to just like pick up a pair before the New Balance craze just like hits pandemonium.
Before we get tired of it?
Yeah.
Kind of.
And annoyed that we can't get any of the cool things that are coming out.
I don't even have the sneakers app on my phone because I know that it would just make me sad if I ever tried to get something and I couldn't. So yeah, as somebody who tries to avoid the big drops as much as possible, I regret to say that I'm bummed that I'm going to have to do that in the future.
Yeah, it's and I could be wrong. Like maybe New Balance will act a little bit differently than Nike. Maybe they will produce lots and lots of pairs, and as you can see, the price of the Made in USA and Made in UK New Balances have always been like towards that $200 range, if not more.
Okay.
And so that could keep things a little bit more. That it even if stuff sells out, it might keep resale prices closer to the ground.
Okay.
Because,
well, you saw that with the 550s.
Well, the 550s are a really inexpensive shoe at $130.
Yeah, and so that like when you see the resale value of those, it's so much lower than so many other shoes because it's just like, oh yeah, these started at $130.
Yeah.
And I own 2 pairs of those because I got an email with the access to it, and I was like, you know what, I really like these shoes, and at a $130 price point for a nice pair of sneakers, it kind of made sense for me, and now I'm wearing them all the time.
Yeah.
Just
for full clarity, the 991 is a part of the Made in the UK line, but so it won't actually. Teddy won't have. I'm not sure he'll have 991 designs coming out, but he might. Maybe they can make these in the US as well. We'll see.
Well, Barrett, I think we did a great job today.
Great first episode.
I think we were hitting on all cylinders. Like we said, these won't be regular Sunday episodes, but these will be, bi-weekly on probably, we're going to aim for midweek. So just keep an eye out for that. If it drops on a Tuesday or Thursday, whatever, you guys can deal with it. But other than that, thank you for attending the first ever episode of Retail Therapy on the Sunday Scaries Podcast feed.
Looking forward to more, Will.
See you guys later.